Hello YouTube. I'm planning to show you a video on how to replace the cooling fan or an AC condenser fan in a 2008 Honda CR-V. Should work good for a 2007 through 2011. These are drawings from the shop manual showing you what they want you to remove. All of this needs to be removed, plus these two bolts here, which are not part of their process. These clips you only need to remove 4, not 12 or so as it shows. So I found 2 other videos on YouTube about this particular model Honda to do this job. One of them, the guy was using a clip removal tool to pop loose all these snap-in wire loom clips, and the way he was doing it, I can't imagine that they didn't all break, and that's a pain in the ass, as you all know. Now all the bolts do need to be removed, and this doesn't show the hood latch being removed, but it needs to be to do it the way I did it. And the other video I found, a woman was doing it in New England and was replacing the radiator anyway, so she didn't mind destroying the radiator in the process. I'm not planning to do that, and I'm not planning on breaking any of these clips, even though I did break one. Now, I did this job yesterday, and I'm showing it to you in retrospect because I have a hell of a time moving a camera around while I'm trying to work on something. So let's show you what I did. First thing you want to do is remove this cover. There's 7 pop-in clips that hold it in place. They're the type that you lift the centerpiece up with a screwdriver and then pry out the rest. It works just like a concrete anchor, only in plastic. The blue tape on here, there's 3 of them that were different. They didn't have the notches around the perimeter of it, and I found out by looking at them that they're longer. So that's why I marked the holes, so I'd be sure to get them back in the right place to prevent trial and error. So let me go ahead and remove this and show you what I did. To remove it, just lift up, slide it forward, and set it aside. First thing you want to do after that is get this part out of this part, because this bracket is going to be removed. This is the hood support. You need to move that pin on the end of the hood into this little hole on the top of the motor mount by the analog brake system. Then you can use this hole that you always wondered why it's there to support the hood almost vertical. Then you want to remove this bolt on the AC condenser support. It's held in with a rubber mount. It's just one bolt, has an alignment pin on the back. You want to do that on both sides, get that out. Then the condenser is free to move forward and back. I would suggest finding some way to push it all the way forward and wedge it or strap it or something so you don't stress the high pressure lines like I may have by flopping it back and forth about 50 times. You'll also want to remove the bracket that supports the radiator. It's rubber mounted as well. There are 3 bolts in it, 2 on top of the cross member and 1 here through the headlight housing. That's on both sides. They're just opposite, and they're marked left and right if I'm not mistaken, but just in case I set them so I could not mistake it. Now, I was replacing the coolant anyway, so I went ahead and drained it and disconnected the radiator hose to make it easier to move. If you're not doing any of that, you can probably do this just as easily with it connected, but it might be a little bit of a pain. So anyway, once you get those brackets out on both sides, you have 3 mount bolts. There's one, if you can see it. It's on top of the cross member, and then there's one there on the front, and there's one on the back as well, if I can point it out right there. This is the other side because the coolant reservoir is blocking the view. You want to remove the coolant reservoir, basically just wiggle it up The spring clip on the back between it and the battery is kind of holding it, but not so much that you can't just pull it up, I think. Otherwise, you might be able to push that with a screwdriver. And you can pop the hose out of this clip right here, and then off the radiator, and set that aside. Don't spill the coolant. You'll want to mark around the edge of the hood latch with a Sharpie or something like it, so you can realign it easily, and then pull these 3 bolts to remove the hood latch. Down here, you might be able to see there's a little clip. That's the clip that holds the wire connector for the hood warning sensor. So disconnect that and disconnect the wire on the back and move this out of the way. You do that before you remove the bolts on the ends of the bulkhead. So once you've done that, the whole assembly, the radiator and the AC condenser can be pushed forward, and this can be lifted up out of the way and basically just pushed a couple of inches towards the rear, and that will allow you to remove the bolts on the fan and lift this one out after you disconnect the wire and pop the wire loom loose. Mine broke. That's the only thing that broke, and it's held in with a zip tie. And you'll want to pop that loose on both fans, obviously. And so once you get the bolts out, you can lift it up and pull it out. The AC fan, you got to do it first, and then do the same with the cooling fan on the driver's side. Lift it up and move it over and pull it out of the same space because the radiator hose is in the way. So the one that I said the woman destroyed the radiator is because these nuts on the back were rusted. So if I'd suggest you put a penetrating oil on there before you even try to break the bolts loose. And if they don't break fairly easily, try to get a pair of pliers on this little mounting flange here on each side. Try to get the jaws as parallel as possible, like water pump pliers or slip joint pliers or some other type that will hold both sides flat, and then try to break it loose and try real hard not to bust these plastic ears, well, the plastic sides of the mount, because it did, and when she did it, busted the top of the radiator, and this is plastic, so it's pretty easy to do. But I did one stupid thing whenever I was doing the work. This flange here has no obvious value because there's nothing mounted to it, and I thought it was just a fold-out flange. Turns out that it's this layer and the layer below spot welded. So it may be structural, it may just be a hood support, but I didn't want to risk it any further, so I put screws all the way through and bent them on the back side a little bit to hopefully prevent any possible damage. Do not cut that off like I did, because I thought I could do it without removing the bulkhead here. And I did get the AC fan out, but the new one was bigger, so I couldn't get it in. And the radiator cooling fan was also bigger, so I couldn't get it out. So it was pointless for me to do that, so don't bother. That was just a stupid mistake, and I thought anyone who saw this would wonder what the hell it is, and that's what it was. So basically, once you've pulled the 3 bolts on each end, you can lift the whole unit up and move it just a couple of inches, and it'll give you enough space to get the fans through. And once you get them in, mounted to the radiator, you can reverse the process, put it all back together, and you should be good to go. So hopefully this was helpful, and hopefully my video will stop twitching, and well, there you go. So good luck. Hope it works out for you. Bye-bye.